Hello guys, so welcome and let's start with the Python and so the basics of Python we'll start with. And as we all know, Python is the high level dynamically typed multi-paradigm programming language. So code is often set to almost like a pseudocode, since it allows you to express very powerful ideas in very few lines of code. And we can see that example of that implementation in a later time of the course, and you can easily see how we can easily write the complex programs into very few lines of code. And if someone is not familiar with any programming background, I'll request you just go through very basics of programming, and I'll try to keep it very simple, so even if someone is not familiar with any programming language can easily understand. And let's come to the basics of fundamental of any programming language. For example, if you want to store any variable, or if you want to store any word or any number, for in that case, so how we'll store that? For example, just take like x, and x, we want to store some number like 7, which is an integer. And this is the y, which is a variable where we want to store a number which is float, means it's having a decimal value, so that is called float. And if you want to store some values which is boolean, for example true and false, so let's take how we can store that and into Python, and how we can check what is the variable type. So if you want to store any variable, for example integer, so just type whatever the variable name is and the number you want to store. For example, x is equal to 1. When you store that, the value will get stored into the variable. And if you want to check what is the variable type, you can just type of that variable, and you can see that. So for example, you can see that x is equal to 1 will get stored into, and we'll get the variable type as int. Same with the float. If you want to store any value as float, and you can do that very easily, you can store any value. So for example, right now if you want to store 198.236, for example this, and if you'll store that, you can change that. The x is values is getting changed, even the type is getting changed dynamically. So whenever I'll pass any value, it will automatically get changed. So let's take this example of boolean. For example, if I have typed b1 as true and b2 as false, and if I want to check the value of b2, it is also going to be boolean. But for example, now I'll say that, okay, let me add another cell, and I'll say that, okay, b1 is 20. And if I'll run it, and if I'll check the type of b1 at this time, and you can see that now it has become int. Earlier it was boolean, and now it has become an int. So whenever I'll type or give any value, it will automatically take that value type, and it will assign it to that variable. So that's the beauty of Python. So you don't have to explicitly assign any variable type, which we used to do in C++ and even in Java, like int x is equal to 10. So here you don't have to explicitly define the type of the variable. Let's come to the string, which is another data type, and strings literals can be defined with any of the single quotes. So it could be single quote, double quote, or the triple quote. All give the same result with two important difference. If you quote with single quotes, you do not have to escape double quotes, and even the vice versa. And if you quote with a triple quote, your string can span multiple lines. So what does that mean? Let's see. If you want to give like name, your name, you have that's a string. Like for example, let's give name is equal to path to AI. Yeah, and let's see what this, and when I'll put this name, you can see that name. So one more thing which I like to add here, right now I have just giving the name, I am not using the print statement. So by default, if I'll give any variable, if I give any value, automatically it will give the output, and it will show you. This is only possible in the Jupyter notebook. If I'll try to print using the print statement also, it will do the same for me. You can see that now I'm getting the output, the value which is in the print statement. But when I'm putting here, it is giving me as a string in a quote. And for example, let's me put it into a single quote. and if I'll run it, you can see that there is no change. So single quote, with single quote and the double quote, it will work same. But when I'm talking about the triple quote, for example, if you want to give a multi-line statement, like sentence is equal to hello, so I'll have to give it, if I'll give it like hello, how are you, and I'll give you, if I'll give it and if I'll run, I'll get an error, because see, you can see that it is not coming into a string. But if I'll do this into a triple quote, and if I'll put this statement into a triple quote, hello, how are you today, and if I'll run it, now if I'll put sentence, you can see that. Now you can see that this is getting into a string format. So that's all about the triple quotes. So that you can define easily under the strings into Python. Let's talk about the complex. So complex numbers, we can see that where we have the real number component and the imaginary component. So that also you can define into Python, and you can easily see the real part and the imaginary part. So that's how different variables we have in Python, and what exactly the variable is. So variable in Python is defined through assignment. So there is no concept of declaring a variable, which we have seen. So what exactly a variable, if somebody is not from a programming background, I'll say that just think of a bowl where you can put any kind of product, whether it's a food product or anything like a balls, you can put into that. So that is the concept of variables which can hold values for you. So it's a variable which can hold any value, that will help. So what is the type of that variable, which what kind of values it is holding. So for example, if it is holding an integer value, it will be a integer type variable. If it is holding any character string, it's a string type variable. So if it is holding any boolean value, which is like true, false, or 1 0, so it will come under the boolean card type of variable. So that's all about the variables we have. And you can see that if you assign it like the 10th and you're assigning it any value, you can easily see what is the value inside that variable. And that's the beauty of dynamic typing. We also have seen like we don't have to provide explicitly the type of that variable. At the runtime, whenever we'll change, automatically the value of that particular variable will get changed, and even the type of that variable will change. The strong typing, what does the strong typing means? So while Python allow you to be very flexible with the type, you must be still be aware about what are the different types you have, and you can't perform all the operations with any other variable. For example, you can see the day, and this is the your integer value, so you can't add a string value or string variable or string value with integer value. So it has to be of the same type. So if you want to append 1 to day, so you have to convert that into a string. So for that we have all the functions which we'll see later, but right now I'll show you how you can do that. So for example, let's take this and let's put today's, I have declaring one variable today, and it is Monday. And I have another variable is like date, which is today's date, maybe it's like 27. And right now I just want to add like t as a variable, and okay, I want to add them together. So if I'll do date plus today, and if I'll try to put it, see, you can see that error. We can't do that because date is an integer type and today is in string type. So let's convert this date into a string and let's try to append it. So if I'll convert pass a string function, if I'll do that, you can see that 27 Monday you get. If I want to add a space between it, or example any parenthesis between it or dash, you can see that. That's how you can add two variables of a different type by converting it into a similar data types. Okay, let's come to the different expressions which we have. So different Boolean expressions, and we can do that which we have already aware of. If you are not aware, you can look like there are AND operators or operators. So if you do that, it will directly work for you. For an AND operator, it will work for true and false, so it will return you false. And OR operator, true or false, it will work true and not true, not false, true is true, and A is this. So these kinds of Boolean expressions or evaluation you can do using the Python. So that's all, and we'll see in the next class. Thank you.